Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson, and you're watching my walkthrough for The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild for Nintendo Wii U and Switch. So you know that one ominous castle that's been on the horizon the entire time, and everybody in the game's like, oh, please go to Hyrule Castle and fight Ganon. Well, we're going to do everything except for that. That's right, in this video we're going to be going to Hyrule Castle and getting all the goodies there, but not fighting the final boss yet. So we're going to go there and steal all the Koroks and some of the awesome weapons that are there. We're going to unlock a shrine, and we're going to get all DLC armor there, as well as the legendary Hylian Shield. And that's what we're going to be doing in this particular video. I'll show you a bunch of different farming spots for things you can get that are there that are awesome, as well as getting some of those key things that I was just talking about a little bit ago. So you can totally go there and you can get a bunch of goodies whenever you want from now on, and I'm going to make that really easy for you. Now, as far as things that I'd recommend before you go there is having a bunch of hearts and some stamina would be nice. Also, unlocking the Master Sword is very handy because the Master Sword does 60 damage when you're near Guardians or when you're in Hyrule Castle just in general. So, whenever you're in Hyrule Castle, it does double damage, so it does 60 damage all the time, and you can use a shield at the same time, and it attacks really fast and everything. It's just amazing. So, the Master Sword makes it quite a bit easier. So that would be a recommendation before you go, but not required, of course. Now, as far as other things you could do to prep before you go, I would highly recommend you bring a couple Blizzard Rods, at least 2, because that gives you enough stunning ability that you can stun all the enemies in there and just run right past them. You can either stun them and run away and just whatever, run right past them, or you can murder them because they're stunned really well. Bring ideally some two-handers that are physical as well, so that shatter damage is just really brought over the top and it does really, really well. So that would be something that would help a lot. As far as other things to consider is having some upgraded armor would be nice because having that armor value will significantly reduce the damage you take. Otherwise, other things you can do is food buffs. Now, one of the recommendations that a lot of people like to do is just use speed buffs. So if you fry up a bunch of Fleet Lotus Seed, then that gives you some speed buffs for a little while anyways, and that's pretty good. Otherwise, if you're really worried about it, all you have to do is fry up some Armored Porgies. Just 3 of those will give you the level 3 armored buff, which you can get from Cape Kales. Very easy to get them there, so you can get a whole bunch of Armored Porgies and fry it up, but that will reduce incoming damage by 6 hearts, which is amazing. And if you're really feeling spicy, you can go ahead and throw in one of those like Farash horns if you want, and that will increase the duration to 30 minutes. So 30 minutes of being basically immortal, like, why not, you know? So if nothing in Hyrule Castle can kill you, then you can just wander around and do whatever you want for half an hour or longer. So if you can fry up a couple of those, you're just good to go. So anyways, with all those things in mind, you should easily have everything you need to tackle Hyrule Castle at long last. Now, as far as entering Hyrule Castle goes, the most obvious path to get there is just to take the southern entrance, but instead I'd recommend you go through the back door, which is to the far north. Now, this is significantly safer, but this also immediately gains us access to a shrine, so that we have access to inside Hyrule Castle as soon as possible. Now, this actually serves 2 purposes. One is it allows us to get inside the bowels of Hyrule Castle, but also, when you are within Hyrule Castle, it treats it like a dungeon, and when you try to warp away, what happens is it will only take you to the entrance of Hyrule Castle. So what's funny about that is by gaining access to the shrine right away, what this does is it essentially gives us 2 warp points in Hyrule Castle. We get inside Hyrule Castle, and we also get the warp point for the entrance as well, which I know it's kind of a weird way to wrap your mind around it, but anyways, point being, as far as gaining access to stuff, it makes it a lot faster to start here, because then from here you can decide wherever you want to go, and you can start at either location afterwards. As soon as you arrive the first time, this will also initiate a cinematic showcasing Calamity Ganon. So when you finally land on the northern part of Hyrule Castle, then you can wander around if you want to. There is a bunch of decayed guardians around here. I'd recommend you ignore them because these particular ones drop the lower tier ancient parts. We don't really care about these ones. What we really want to kill is like Guardian Skywatchers would be, and Stalkers are okay, but the Guardian Skywatchers in particular drop the highest tier loot. So that's what we really care about. Anyways, our goal is to go through the cave-like entrance, just follow the water to get inside the northern part of Hyrule Castle, which is the docks. Now once you arrive, there is a bunch of black Lizalfos here. Now these guys can be killed pretty easily by using a bunch of physical weapons that do a lot of damage. The Master Sword is probably the best because it does 60 damage whenever you're inside Hyrule Castle. Now you can either stun these guys using the Blizzard Rod, or you can ignore them by simply running past them using speed, and ideally using something that makes you invisible to them, such as the Lizal Mask or Majora's Mask. So you can have that to run right past them, or stun them and run right past them if you want to. Otherwise, that stun does really well if you follow up with a physical damage ability, such as any of the royal weapons, in particular the Royal Claymore, otherwise using the Master Sword. So a Royal Claymore in particular particular would be pretty good. So use a really hard-hitting two-hander. But the Master Sword does just as much damage as that, if not more, because it does 60 damage, meanwhile the Royal Claymore does 52. So anyways, the Master Sword is just like the best thing ever. Now you can also sneak up on these guys to hit them from behind, and that will also one-shot them, even with a medium-tier weapon such as this Royal Broadsword I have, which only does 36 damage, which is kind of low. But from behind, you hit them for so hard that it does really, really well. Now, as far as these Black Lizalfos go, something else to know about them is these ones all have shock arrows, which can be pretty awful. That'll do a straight-up 3 hearts of damage on top of the regular physical damage of both the Strengthened Lizalfo that they currently have in their possession, as well as the fact that they are a black tier, which means they do, I think it's 2 hearts of additional damage on top of everything else, and these are also harder. I think they're white tier in Master Mode. But anyways, just know these guys hurt. So, to counter the fact that they have a bunch of shock arrows, ideally you wear the rubber outfit if you have it, which is what I'm doing in this video. Otherwise, you can also have some shock resistance food. Now, when killed, they also drop those very shock arrows, which are pretty valuable. So I feel like these particular Lizalfos are pretty worth killing, both because they're black or white tier, depending on if you're playing in Master Mode or not. That will then give you a bunch of Lizalfos tails. So these are some of the highest tier of the regular Lizalfos, meaning they often drop Lizalfos tails. And that is one of the ingredients you need to upgrade the Zora and Soldier sets. So if you're planning on upgrading either one of those, I think these guys are pretty easy to kill, and so just really easy. Especially, too, honestly, right after you defeat or you complete this shrine up ahead, then you can then warp here every Blood Moon, and you can just drop down right next to these Lizalfos right behind them and sneak strike them from behind. So it's a really easy way to get some Lizalfos tails that are like guaranteed high tier loot, and so it's a really easy way to do that and stock up on some shock arrows. So it's one of those weird, obscure things that I think a lot of people don't think about. Also, up on the nearby ledge, there is a Great Flame Blade. This is one of the better places to farm it, especially if you have Majora's Mask or the Lizal Mask. You can just run right past these enemies and grab the Great Flame Blade and run away. It is a little bit scary, though, because if these keys see you, then the Lizalfos are alerted to your presence as well. So it does make it a little bit annoying. Now up ahead here, you'll notice what I did is I took out my bow with a regular arrow, and then what I did is I just jumped on top of and walked over a nearby torch. And what this did is it lit the tip of my arrow so that I could light the nearby brazier. So I didn't actually use a fire arrow at all. And I know it's like a little bit weird, but you can rewind in the video to see what I did there. But it's a really simple tactic to just not waste fire arrows because they're more rare and they're more expensive and stuff, but this was a way that I did that, and then I just collected my arrow afterwards. So because I used a regular arrow as opposed to a flame arrow, I was able to pick it up again, so I didn't actually waste any resources at all. So here we have a major test of strength. Now in general, I'm going to be fast forwarding all these. There's not really much to say about them. I've already shown a bunch of them in this walkthrough. However, this one's kind of fun because we have a bunch of metal blocks in the floor. Now you can use Magnesis to pull them up in order to block the Guardian Scout's projectiles and stuff is what they're intending, and also to use it to block when they does that spinny move thing, so you can stun them that way. So that's what they're intending you to do. However, there is a glitch that you can do that is pretty cool. You see, when you use a spin attack with a shock weapon, in particular this is easiest to do with the one-hander, the Thunderblade, if you press the pause button and try to drop the weapon, this only works if you didn't actually hit an enemy. But if you use a spin attack and you're not hitting an enemy, you can then drop it on the ground while you're still in the middle of the animation, and then it will cause the Thunderblade to make other things electrified until you pick it back up again. So it continually makes an electric field. So this is useful in water and also next to big metal objects because you can electrocute them permanently to do damage to either yourself or enemies. So be careful not to touch it yourself. I was wearing the rubber set so that I was completely immune to shock damage, but otherwise you can stand off of the metal block and you always drop the Thunderblade behind you. So as long as you make it so your back is facing towards the block, you'll drop it onto the block and then you can use it to make a trap for the Guardian, which is awesome. Here I switched to wearing the Guardian, or the Champion's Tunic so that I could see enemies' health bars, so you can see that the Guardian is indeed taking damage from it. It's only 20 every couple seconds, which is kind of nice. Now you can go ahead and just attack it while it's permanently stunned. Just be warned that if you use multiple attacks in a row, that melee combo will then knock the enemy back. So you just want to use the first hit of the combo and then wait a split second before you attack again, so that you don't knock the Guardian off of the block. But anyways, in this way you can keep it permanently stunned. You can kill it super easily and either just wait around or continue to deal damage with other weapons. So generally speaking, I try to avoid using glitches in my walkthroughs, both because I like playing the game legit and everything, but also because I just feel like it kind of breaks things. But this glitch is so obscure and like it's not very practical most of the time, so I feel like it would be a wasted opportunity to not do it because it's kind of fun. I also kind of find it amusing that it's a major test of strength, so it's one of the harder ones anyways. So if it's going to be on any of the tests of strength, I'm glad that it's on a major one because then we can just totally cheese this. I think it's just really funny. But anyways, as far as this glitch goes, I usually don't use it in combat. It's not very practical most of the time. There's just very few instances where you can even do this. What I use this for mostly is is actually just to craft yellow chew jelly, because when you have an electrified object, if you toss down any color of chew jelly on it, it will then become electrified, which then transforms it into yellow chew jelly. So rather than hunting yellow chews, I think you're better off just getting whatever other color is easier for you. Like, say, for example, taking the Blizzard Rod and going to Death Mountain and killing red chews, because they blow up instantaneously. You pick up their massive amounts of chew jelly they're dropping, and then you come here and turn those red chew jelly into yellow chew jelly, like that. You can do stuff like that. So as long as you're here, if you like, this would be a good opportunity for you to make a bunch of yellow chew jelly as long as we're here. So quick note before we move on is there is some wooden chests that are here in the water that are between the Lizalfos that I collected a little bit ago, and one of them has an ancient arrow, so you should totally grab that if you haven't done it yet. Now, unfortunately, most of the time wooden chests will respawn every blood moon, and regular chests do not after you've collected their goodies. Now, this is one of the exceptions where these particular wooden chests do not respawn, which is sad, because if they did, this would be an awesome place to farm for ancient arrows, because it's just right next to a shrine. You come back every blood moon and get that, that'd be awesome. But it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. This is one of the few exceptions in the game, and they apparently planned for that. I'm so sad now. Anyways, our next priority here in Hyrule Castle is to get the Hylian Shield. So if you're going to do anything, that's the biggest priority that you should do as long as we're here. So now that we have the warp point, we're going to go back outside. I realize that seems like a little bit backwards, but it's a nice thing. Anyways, there's a couple different ways to get to the Hylian Shield. However, this is the fastest way by far. So, next you'll notice that I'm killing a Guardian, and I kill it a variety of different ways. I'm using the Guardian weapons that I just got off of the Guardian Scout inside that major test of strength just a moment ago. I dropped several weapons so I could pick up all three of the weapons that it dropped. So it dropped a spear, a sword, and a greatsword, or whatever. So I have all three of those, and they're all ++, so they do a lot of damage. Now remember, the Guardian weapons do increase damage to Guardians, and since there's a tons of Guardians here in Hyrule Castle, it's a good thing. Also, the durability is kind of low, but otherwise the other thing I'm going to be using it for is to attack frozen enemies, and I just need something that hits really hard, and Guardian weapons are great for that. They do really good damage, and then they don't have very high durability, but that doesn't matter because I'm not attacking things like crazy anyways. I'm just using it for that single strike attack every once in a while, so it works out great. So next what we're doing is just heading on into that doorway which leads to Lockup. Now this is right next to where the Hylian Shield is. All you have to do is just continue on towards the end of the hall to get to the Hylian Shield. Otherwise you can do some of the goodies around here with me. Now to get into it from this side, all you have to do is simply use the Cryonis on the puddle to raise the doorway. And then from here, you can continue on down the hallway, and you can open the gates if you wish by killing the eyeballs to release the malice, and also to smack the various levers that are here to unlock the cells. Now, there's a bunch of enemies inside. They're not too bad, especially if you're using the Blizzard Rod. You can defeat them really easily. Again, just follow up with a really hard-hitting physical damage dealer, whether that be the Master Sword, whether it be a Royal Weapon, whether it be one of the Guardian weapons we just picked up, or you can use some of the Dragon Bone weapons here if you're using it in combination with either the Phantom Ganon set or the Radiant set. You can do good damage with those. This is also one of the better places in the game to find some of the Dragon Bone Moblin Spears, which are fairly rare. However, more rare than that, and also more valuable, is all the Royal Guard weapons and shields that are here. Now, Royal Guard stuff is really cool because what it does is it has low durability, but it has very high stats. It has some of the highest stats in the game, at least pretty similar to a lot of the Lionel weapons that we can get at the end of the game as well. So they're pretty good stuff. The problem is just their durability is so low. However, that doesn't really matter in this particular case because we're going to be using the Blizzard Rod to stun them first anyway. So if we do that and follow up with especially a two-hander of the Royal Guard stuff is super nice because it hits really hard. It doesn't matter that the durability is low because we're not attacking all that often with it anyways. Also, another fun fact about this whole area in general is because a lot of the enemies have these really high tier weapons, they drop them all the time. So even if the durability is low, you kill the enemies and you just pick up that weapon instead. So it makes like doing things like throwing the weapons a lot more practical in this particular case than it ever has been before, because usually you're kind of worried about that. You don't want to throw your weapons and waste their durability because otherwise you'll run out of your really high tier weapons, but because all the weapons here are high tier, you don't have to worry about it that much, and that's kind of nice. One other thing worth noting is the fact that we are going to be using a Royal Guard either weapon or shield to hand in for a quest after we leave Hyrule Castle. So just make sure you have at least one of them on you for that purpose. So I am using one in combat right now, but I do want to make sure I have at least one of those things before we leave. So as I was saying a little bit ago, this whole area of Lockup is kind of optional. You don't actually have to face any of the enemies here at all. If you don't want to, you can just ignore them and run right past them. Especially if you have Majora's Mask, you can just run through here. There is that little chunk of malice at the beginning that is blocking your path, but you can just you can either kill the eye really easily to get rid of it, or you can just walk right over it and take the damage anyways, and nobody cares. Like, just eat some apples and you're fine. But anyways, continue on towards the end of the hall, open up the chest nearby to get a free topaz, then continue on straight ahead and make a hard right to enter a circular chamber where you'll face off against the Stalnox. This is the easiest way to get here in my opinion. It doesn't take very long at all. All you need is one Cryonis and then just run. Like, it's right next to the teleporter actually too, which is super nice. I think a lot of people actually go the opposite way, which takes a very long time until they finally get to this particular room, but it's very easy to find if you go from the Saas Shrine. Anyways, this particular Stalnox has the legendary Hylian Shield, which is our goal for coming to Hyrule Castle. This is the most valuable item here, so you should totally grab this. So to defeat the Stalnox, all you have to do is shoot it in the eye to stun it, and then just keep running forward and attacking it. If you are going to use one of your Royal Guard weapons, just make sure you probably swap it out. Would be smart so that you don't waste it. I'm going to get more, so I'm not too worried about it, but just so you know, like I was saying a little bit ago, you do want to hang on to at least one of them before we leave. This particular Stalnox is interesting because it drops 3 weapons, which is unusual. Most Stalnox only drop 1, so I think it's just intriguing that this one actually has more than that. There is a Great Thunderblade, which is kind of garbage in my opinion. We can get those pretty easily, and the fact that I just don't really think that's a particularly good weapon. I would rather have something faster that can apply the shock effect instantaneously, because the whole point of it is to remove enemies' weapons or to use it in rain. And so the faster I can apply the effect, the better off I'm going to be. But however, the rare weapon here is actually going to be the Royal Halberd. You don't see those very often, and they do a lot of damage actually. For that tier of spear, it's actually pretty darn good. So if you like spears, I would highly recommend you grab the Royal Halberd. Very good weapon that's very fast. You can single target somebody down very quickly. Anyways, after you've collected those or whatever you want to do there, go ahead and open the chest to find the legendary Hylian Shield. This is a really awesome weapon that's very iconic in the Zelda series. It's been seen in a lot of different games. Now in this particular one, what it does is it has very high deflect value, so it will block a lot of damage, and it also has very high durability. I think it has 900 durability off the top of my head, which is a lot, so it can get hit many times before it finally breaks. So you can use this for quite a long time. Now because the deflect value is so high, what I'd recommend you do is actually use it for like bosses and Lionels, things like that, things that hit really hard, and also just in Hyrule Castle in general. So that's what I'd recommend you do with it. However, you can also use it the rest of the time. One thing that I would caution you away from is don't use it for shield surfing. I would recommend you use disposable shields that you don't care about for that. Now, like I was explaining earlier, when you're inside Hyrule Castle, it treats it like a dungeon, and the only way to warp, when you try to warp away, it just takes you back to the entrance, like it does for all the other dungeons in the game as well. So because of this, by having access to the Saas Shrine, we actually essentially get 2 warp points. You can warp inside Hyrule Castle, or you can warp to the entrance by warping away. So it's kind of like we get 2 warp points for 1, which is kind of neat. Alright, so next I'm warping back to the shrine, then continuing up the nearby stairs to reach the library. Now there is a metal bookcase in the way that you're going to have to push out of the way using magnesis, and then you can also use it to smash the nearby enemies, which is lots of fun. Now you can, of course, start at the library and then work your way the other direction if you knew which one of these bookcases to move, and then you could reach the shrine that way, and that would also work. It's also fairly obvious because you can see on your minimap where there's hidden paths. Although the minimap is very confusing, it's constantly moving, and it's just very confusing looking, so it's very easy to get lost here in Hyrule Castle. Now, the first part of this video was getting the warp point and getting the Hylian Shield, which in my opinion are the 2 most important things that we can do here in Hyrule Castle as far as collectibles. For the rest of this video, I'm going to be doing the things that are not as important, but still nice. We're going to be getting the remaining memories, and also the remaining pieces of the DLC armor in particular is the next big highlights, and I'm just going to be getting some more valuable chests along the way. I'm not going to be getting everything, and I'm not going to explore every nook and cranny of Hyrule Castle. I'm just going to get the things that I think are more important, and just some goodies along the way as I'm working my way to those checkpoints. Now, as far as the library itself, there's a couple things worth noting. There's some more of these metal bookcase cabinet things, and you can go ahead and move them out of the way, and there's some alcoves behind each one of them. One of them has some ore. In particular, there is a chest that you can grab, and there's also a rare ore vein, and this one will reappear every blood moon, so you should totally grab this whenever you're in the area. Similar to that, on the north side of the library, there's another alcove that leads to the King's Study. In here, there's a chest containing 300 rupees, so that's awesome, and there's also a Royal Guard Shield. Now, the Royal Guard Shield is not that great because the durability is super low, although it does have a very high defense rating, but I think what's more important to note is just the fact that it's so close to the warp point, and so if you're needing a Royal Guard item to give to Parsi in like at Riverside Stable to complete the Royal Guard Gear side quest, then this is a really easy one to grab. So if you went to Hyrule Castle and you forgot to bring one of those things, this would be a really close one you can grab that doesn't take a lot of effort, and so you can do that real quick. There's also the King's Journal that is on the table, so you can check that out if you wish, and he talks about some of the events leading up to Calamity. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I enjoyed all the journal entries in this game. They were all pretty well done. I feel like oftentimes lore in games, there's this fine line between being enjoyable and then all of a sudden it just turns into making my eyes glaze over, you know? But I think they did a good job with all the journal entries in this particular game. So, real talk here, it does make me feel a little bit awkward having these big long sections where there's no commentary. I always feel like I have the need to put something there. It's like a little bit different than like cinematics, you know? Cinematics are stuff happening, but in this it's just like text going by for a while. I didn't want to waste people's time, but I did want to include it because they're really enjoyable and I like them. And if people really want to just read just this text anyways, they can just mute the video temporarily so they don't have to listen to me prattling on in the meantime. But I did just want to kind of share some of my thought process in the middle of doing this. I was actually debating about reading these in particular, or maybe like synthesizing my voice a little bit to make it super deep for reading the king's voice, you know? And then I was debating about asking my sister-in-law to read Zelda's journal entries instead. But it would be a little bit awkward maybe because then she'd have to come up with a British accent, right? This game did get a little bit of heat from fans in general who, I guess it's just because they expected Zelda's voice to sound different than that and they were upset that she had a British accent. I didn't mind that she had a British accent, I just thought it was weird that she had one and everybody else didn't. And I understand there's different people, the Rito versus the Gorons or whatever, so they all have different accents, like that's fine. But I think it's weird that like her father doesn't have a British accent, but she does, you know? It's just, that just kind of made me think it was a little bit odd, didn't make any sense. So it felt, jarring or like inconsistent, so I didn't like that. But as far as the accent itself, I think it was fine, and the fact that Nintendo decided to choose that specifically, I think is fine. In fact, like I would almost argue that it's actually more appropriate because, you know, Zelda's never really spoken except for the CDI games, but those don't count, and also the cartoon, and that doesn't count either, excuse me. But anyways, what I will say, though, is that if you think about it, like, England is, like, kind of the place, like, that whole area of the world is kind of where there's monarchies anyways, and, like, North America doesn't in particular, so, like, as far as English-speaking places in the world, if you're going to make a character who is part of a monarchy in a video game for a fantasy setting, it almost makes more sense to have them have a British accent, you know? But yeah, I think the voice actress did a great job for this game in general, and besides that, she's perfect for the role. She's got blonde hair and everything. My criteria is flawless. But yeah, this journal entry is interesting because it shows that, like, the king is not unaware of Zelda's struggles and her feelings at all. It just, like, the cinematics make it seem like he's just an overbearing jerk who's really cold all the time and he doesn't like understand what she's going through at all, but this journal shows that he totally does, and he's very much aware, and he hates the position that they're both in, but he also has to, you know, give her the tough love, because, you know, she has to do this, otherwise they're all doomed, so, and she has responsibilities as a princess, just as he has responsibilities as the king. It's just responsibilities are lame. The king is adulting real hard right now, that's what's happening. I do like that this journal spans over the course of when Zelda was like 6 years old, all the way up until when she was, I believe, 17 is I think what it is. It's a little over 11 years is when this journal covers, and so the end of it shows when he's waiting anxiously for her to come back from the Lanayru route, and hopefully she has awakened to her powers, otherwise everybody's doomed, which is exactly what happens because she was not successful, which is sad. But anyways, this journal like just shows snippets of all those different things. You know, one other comment I will say is when you finally meet up with Zelda, she's looking great. Like, you know, she was 17 years old when this last journal entry happened, and then 100 years passed where she's holding Ganon at bay that whole time, and she looks great. She hasn't aged a day since then, but she's technically like 117 years old, I guess, and whatever kind of diet and like training regimen she's on, she's looking good, man. I want to get on that thing. Although I guess what that implies, if you want to age well, all you have to do is just hold some evil at bay with some mystical powers for 100 years. Like, that doesn't sound like the best time in the world to me, I guess. Do you really want to get on that plan? You thought paleo was rough, but all you need to do is just be a goddess incarnate and everything's horrible. Now, in the middle of the floor, there is also another book here you can read that gives you the recipe for fruitcake, which is Princess Zelda's favorite meal, and it's also one of the recipes you can potentially use if you want to complete the Royal Recipe side quest. So I'm going to go ahead and go upstairs where there is another recipe we can grab real quick, which is also in the library as well. Now, when you're using the Blizzard Rod, it is awesome here in Hyrule Castle. However, one of the nuances of how it works is the fact that it will like get blocked by like things in your way. So if there's a rock in your path or a pillar or something like that, then sometimes it can block the projectile, even though the graphic will shoot forward. If there's something in the way, then it will stop it from moving forward. This is particularly noticeable on inclines, such as these stairs. So if you do want to use the Blizzard Rod, especially here in Hyrule Castle, just be warned that sometimes if you're going upstairs, you do want to make sure you get to the top of the stairs before you use it on the enemies, otherwise it will not work. Now, up on the balcony on the east side, you'll then find the second phenomenal cosmic recipe with itty-bitty sleeping space? I think it's funny. We just have this giant pedestal with this tiny book on it. The book does not fill up the space very well. But anyways, here is the second recipe for that side quest. Now, just a quick note as we're passing through, just so you know, in the ceiling of the library itself, there is a hole, so you can crawl through that and get to the outside, or vice versa. So you can get into Hyrule Castle from there, or exit Hyrule Castle from there as well. So that is another potential shortcut. So just something to keep in mind when you're running around here. Now, along the way, there is also a chest in the middle tier that you can get to, and you can climb back pretty easily, and this contains a silver rupee worth 100. Now, in general, I do feel like most rupee chests are not worth our time, because we can make rupees faster other places. However, this one is so convenient, and it's right there. You might as well. There's not really a super big reason not to. It's just so convenient. In the next room, there is a great floss blade that you can grab as well. This one will reappear every blood moon, which is kind of nice. So if you're ever passing through here, you can get that. However, I think other frost weapons, in particular spears and the blizzard rod, are just better in general. The only reason a great frost blade is kind of nice is if you are not planning to switch weapons. But if you do switch to a high damage physical weapon, you just do more damage anyways. Like, one of the trade-offs of having the great frost blade is that it has the frost effect on it, but it reduces the total physical damage on it. So if you shatter somebody with a great frost blade by hitting them twice, so your first hit will freeze them, the second hit does the shatter damage, it just doesn't do as good as swapping your weapon. So if you're trying to go out of your way to shatter people, I think it makes more sense to use a different weapon. So once you reach the armory, you can go ahead and grab some of these items if you wish. Now, most of the stuff here is kind of garbage, low-tier stuff, but I do think it's worth noting the fact that there is a couple Royal Guard stuff. Remember that any Royal Guard items will always have pretty high stats, except for durability. The durability is low, so they die pretty quick, and they'll wear out fast, but otherwise, everything else they do is amazing. They do really high damage, they do really good defense for the shields, and so they will hold up well while they last, so it could be a good thing to use anyway. But also, in addition to that, you can use like one of these items to complete a side quest, because we do need at least one Royal Guard stuff to complete the Royal Gear side quest, and I'm going to use one of those. Now, for me, I think the thing that makes the most sense is actually to use the shield, because I just don't use shields very much. But whatever you want to do. Something else worth noting about this, too, is that the Royal Guard bow does a lot of damage, does a whopping 50 damage, and if you can hit enemies when they don't see you in the head, you'll do significantly more damage, both because you haven't been discovered yet, and also because you're doing a headshot. So if you're planning on headshotting enemies from stealth with a bow, then this is a really nice one to use, because you're not pelting them with tons of arrows one after another anyway, so even if it does have low durability, it doesn't matter. So if that's your playstyle, if you like stealthing a lot, both for sneak strikes and also for, hitting them with arrows at range in the same way, then this would be a good option for you. In the next hallway is a series of cracked walls that lead to little hidden alcoves. Most of them just lead to rusty weapons as well as a Lizalfos. So the only one we care about is the one at the very far back left. So you just follow the left wall until you get to the dead end, blow up that wall, and inside you'll find a chest containing the Royal Guard uniform, as well as a Royal Guard sword. So continuing back the way we came, straight ahead is the dining hall. Now, there's nothing super worthwhile in there. There's some food on the tables that you can grab if you wish. There's some moblins, but otherwise there is a royal halberd that's in the fireplace, so you can grab that if you wish. I think that's kind of worthwhile, but if you like spears anyways, those are pretty rare, and that's a pretty decent damage one for a physical one. So if you want to grab that, go for it. Otherwise, take a right and go down the stairs. This leads to the observation hall. Now, there is a moblin here. Now, these guys are pretty easy, especially if you bring a blizzard rod. It allows you to make quick work of these guys. Just swap to a physical damage dealer, you're done. I did mention this earlier, but something you can do to make the weapons closer together so you don't have to travel as far using your menus is you can drop them on the ground and pick them back up again, and this will put them right next to each other. So you could have your blizzard rods and your physical damage dealers right next to each other in your inventory. So our goal is kind of to work our way towards the guards chamber. Unfortunately, there is malice in the way in this hallway, so we can't get there from this direction. You can go from the other direction. You can break the malice from that way, heading towards the observation room. So instead, what we're going to do is go through the observation room and go outside, and this will make it pretty easy. There's a Thunderblade here if you like those. I think they're much easier to get other places, especially with Stalnox. But anyways, break the eye here. This will lead to a chest containing 3 ancient arrows, super valuable. And as long as you're here, you can go ahead and complete this nearby Korok. See, this is one of the harder ones to get. What you want to do is stand near the pinwheel, and then if you use a sniper bow, then all you have to do is, if you get onto the lower platform, you just aim at the top of the wall in the distance above the balloon, and this will allow you to be able to hit it very easily. So that's how you do that, is use a sniper bow and just aim up because of the fall-off range. So it's right at the top of the wall is the appropriate place. I think a regular bow will do that too, but you have to aim even higher. It's like twice as high as that, so you just aim up like in the forest area, and then that will make it land in the appropriate place. So like I explained a little bit ago, back the way we came, there is a wall of malice straight ahead on that hallway, so we can't enter from that direction. There's a lot of one-way paths in Hyrule Castle where you have to break the eyes on specific sides of malice walls, and so this was as far as we could go in this particular direction. However, it's really easy to just bypass it, because out here on this balcony, all you have to do is hop down and continue going clockwise around Hyrule Castle. You'll reach another entrance right here, where you just use Cryonis on the nearby puddle to raise the grading, and from here, you will then see we're on the opposite side of that malice wall I was just talking about. Anyways, just head up the stairs and continue on down the hallway. Now, you'll notice that my Blizzard Rod is getting pretty damaged at this point, so that's why I made sure that I went out of my way to get 2. Just so you know, too, as we're killing all these enemies, be sure that you grab all of the monster parts that they leave behind. A lot of these Alphos tails are going to be great for upgrading the Zora set, which I'm going to be doing here in a little while. So right around the corner, we have the Royal Guard Chamber. Now, right before you get there, though, if you look off to the left, there is a cracked wall that you can explode with bombs, and inside it's hiding a chest that has 3 ancient arrows in it. Super valuable. Make sure you grab that. Super great. Now, in the Guard Chamber itself, there is a raised platform above the Lizalfos, and these have some explosive barrels on them. You can either shoot the explosive barrels, or otherwise you can break the platform itself, or you can shoot the explosive barrels that are on the ground. Either way, any of those things, those combinations, will cause the platform to break, and it causes a chest that was on top of it to go flying through the air. This will also do some damage to the Lizalfos that are here anyways, which is always a good thing. So go ahead and destroy them if you'd like. But anyways, just then go hunting for the chest. Now, in my case, it appeared behind me, but just make sure you find that DLC chest afterwards. So just to clarify, it was on top of the platform with the explosive barrels that was above the Lizalfos. I broke the lower explosive barrels, which caused the other ones to explode as well, and this chest went flying. So that's what happened here. So make sure you grab this DLC chest, which is what we came to this room to get. Now, as long as we were here, we might as well just go underneath the stairs as well and grab this chest that has a Natrafang in it too. This isn't like a super great dragon item, it's just okay, but we might as well. Free money, why not? So next what happened is I saved and loaded just to start recording the next section, and what happened is it made the explosive barrels reappear as well as the platforms above. So I was just showing this other alternative method of shooting the little ropey things that are on those supporting beams that causes it to drop down as well. So that's another alternative for destroying those, for destroying the Lizalfos as well as getting down that chest. So that's another way you can do that instead. I think just breaking the first explosive barrel and having it blow up all of them makes more sense in general, though, but then that costs a fire arrow. Or you could use a bomb, I guess. You could throw a bomb at them. That would also work. Now, next what you want to do is climb up onto the nearby platform because there is some chests at the end that have some goodies, as well as a falcon bow that is leaning up against the wall. Now, falcon bows are kind of hard to find. There's only a couple of them in the game that will reappear with blood moons, and this is one of them. I think this one's too far out of our way in general to make it a good farming location. However, as long as we're here, there's no reason not to grab it. Now, generally speaking, I like to have 3 different types of bows on me. I like to have a couple sniper bows for puzzles and Koroks and stuff, and then a couple bows that are just straight up damage, usually royal bows or royal guard bows, and then lastly, a couple bows that shoot out multiple arrows at once, usually Lionel bows. So if I have a multi-shot Lionel bow, that does really, really good as well. So I like to have 2 of each type, is what I like to do in general. Now, just so you know, down below, there is another one of these moblins. Now, this one actually has a Royal Guard Claymore, which is a much harder hitting one. I think this is really good in combination with a Blizzard Rod because the Royal Guard Claymore, anyways, does 72 damage, which is very high. The durability is very low, but because the multiplier is so high when you freeze them, it does 3 times the damage instead, so it's really nice. So anyway, point being, if you're going to be using some disposable weapons here in Hyrule Castle, I would highly recommend you get this Claymore, especially if you're using frost weapons, because it just is so good. Alright, so our next objective is to work our way over to Princess Zelda's room and study, because we can get a memory there as well as read some journal entries, and there is some other goodies outside nearby there that we're going to get here in just a little bit. So, to get there, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can go through the hallways. Normally they're not really expecting you to come from this direction. The malice is intended to be impassable, however, you can get through here pretty easily if you simply duck. You can just walk over all this. We'll take a bunch of damage on the malice, but it's only for a few seconds anyways, and you can just eat food to get through it. Now, you can take this first left if you want to, which does lead to the courtyard, but it's kind of an awkward place and there's a bunch of guardians around there, so instead I'd recommend you take the far hallway, which is pretty close to our destination actually. So go out here, then just climb the wall. If it's raining, you can go ahead and throw down a campfire back inside, and then you can use that to change the time of day, which will then change the forecast as well, so that you can climb up here without any problems. Now this is actually pretty great because it brings us right to the tower, which is our destination, so that's wonderful. Now as an alternative for you too, you can go back out the entrance that we just came in where we use the Cryonis blocks on those gates, and if it's raining, once again, just use a campfire to change the time of day, which will make it so it's not raining anymore. Anyways, from here, one of the things you can do to get through this area is simply use the Zora armor. The reason for this is because it doesn't even cost that much stamina or anything, but you can go up the waterfalls and swim up them, which will then allow you to ascend pretty high, and you can bypass a lot of the enemies. A lot of the enemies don't see you at all, or if they do see you, then you're almost instantaneously out of their range, so you don't have to worry about it at all. So this is a pretty safe method if you don't really want to deal with a lot of the enemies. You can just bypass a lot of this garbage, and so that's kind of nice. The other thing that's kind of cool about it is because it increases your elevation, it makes it so that you can just then, it launches you up in the air, and you can just sail to wherever you want to go in the Hyrule Castle area outside. And it also is kind of a handy way to get to all the other entrances to get inside as well, because if you can kind of sail up through the waterfalls in the middle of the Hyrule Castle area outside, then while you're in midair, you can just sail in whatever compass direction you want to go to get to the other entrances that are all over the place. And so it just makes it really nice. So I actually think this is one of my favorite ways of getting through Hyrule Castle in general, is you can just use the Zora armor to get through here really fast. But again, so we're trying to get to the top left corner of the map and pretty high in elevation, so using the waterfalls is a great way to do that. Anyway, regardless of which method you decide to choose, both of these methods will lead you to the tower pretty easily. So once you finally arrive, we're going to go ahead and go inside. Now, unfortunately, getting up into the tower is a little bit awkward because some of these spots aren't as climbable as I would like. So it's easier to go like across the little bridge at the top. So instead, what you want to do is go into like the mountainside, basically. There's some openings here, and you can use that to reach Zelda's study and her room. So once you finally arrive in Zelda's room, a quick note before we move on is there is an edge of duality on the floor, but that's kind of garbage items. I don't think that edge of dualities are very good. I used to like them when I first played the game, but I've realized since then that Royal Claymores are just better. They're more plentiful, they do more damage, and they have more durability. There's no reason to pick up an edge of duality. So anyways, just note, if you're getting excited by that, just don't pick it up. What is more exciting, though, is that just above the fireplace, there's actually a Royal Guard bow. And as I was saying a little bit ago, those ones have low durability, but very high damage. So they're very good for doing like sneak strike headshots from stealth. So if you're hiding behind an enemy or from a distance and you want to headshot them, that's a really good option for you for doing that. Now, unfortunately, unlike Skyward Sword, we do not have a piece of heart here in Zelda's room, but we do have her diary, which I suppose you could say is also a piece of her heart, right? So you put it that way, if you look at it from that perspective, I guess it's kind of the same thing. I think between the two of them, I'd rather take the piece of heart. I'm more of a shape kind of guy. Joking aside, though, this diary is kind of nice because we get to hear some of her thoughts behind the scenes, which is kind of nice. It, fleshes out her character a little bit more. I do find it a little bit sad, though, that it tends to focus pretty hard on just the memories we've already seen, so it's just like her thoughts during the cinematics that we already see in the various memories. So I wish it could be just separate lore instead, or they could reference it a little bit, but it feels like they just focused on it a little bit too much, which feels a little bit too lazy to me. But anyway, it is still nice to see. One of the things that's funny worth pointing out is just that she does reference that Link actually talked during this, which is one of the few times in the Zelda series that's ever happened. Of course he does it off camera. I mean, why would he do it in-game, you know what I'm saying? So apparently the reason that Link confesses that he's always silent is because he feels like he should silently bear any burden, and also because he constantly feels all these eyes upon him and has all these responsibilities. He feels like he should just handle it and, like, not break everybody's expectations, I guess. But it's kind of an interesting point, though, that it just, like, the reason that he does it is because he feels responsible is an interesting perspective that I hadn't considered before. I just thought he was just didn't have anything to say, or he's just a real quiet dude. He's just like introverted to the extreme is what I always said. Like extroverted enough to save the world, but introverted enough that you don't want to actually talk to anybody. I can relate. Of course, now that I think about it. Isn't that the very definition of a single-player video game anyway? Oh wait, this suddenly got real dark. Wasn't expecting it to go there. Sorry about that, guys. You know, in most of the games in the Zelda series, Princess Zelda is at least friendly with Link, and even when they first meet, she's like already like, hey, I'm your best friend, let's hang out, type of thing. Meanwhile, or she's even like his childhood friend. Meanwhile, in this game, she's like irritated with him from the very beginning, but really that kind of boils down to the fact that he doesn't say anything, so she doesn't understand him, and also because she just feels insecure about her responsibilities, and she doesn't know how to awaken to her power, and she just feels intimidated by him because he's got it all figured out, and it worked so easily for him, so she's jealous, basically. But so she doesn't really like him, but once she gets him to open up and everything, then she starts realizing they have a lot more in common than she thought, which is kind of a nice twist, or like a nice way to show that. They don't really show this in the cinematics very much, but it's easily seen here in her diary, which I kind of like. So speaking of likes, there is some implied romance in several of the other Zelda games as well. I don't think Zelda's into him in this particular game, or at least she wasn't at first, but this journal entry seems to imply that that could be a possibility, I suppose, even though she didn't like him at first. So maybe the first step to getting, all the girls tend to fall for our silent protagonist eventually, right? So maybe the first step to getting the lady to fall for you is to irritate her like crazy, right? Works every time, right? Just take it from the master of love right here. One thing I will say that I think is kind of interesting about that's revealed here, and we kind of see this in the cinematics a little bit, but it's extrapolated a little bit more here in these diary entries here, but just the whole interaction between Link and Zelda, as far as from Link's perspective, is that it's interesting how, like, he doesn't say anything or whatever, but as far as his actions, he's not, like, boasting or anything. He's not like holding it over her like, haha, I'm so good or whatever. There's no arrogance here at all. He is a chosen one too, and yeah, he's got his stuff figured out and she doesn't yet, but he's just like faithful and he's just always there for her, and like And, like, the funny thing is that he can relate to her. He wasn't looking down on her the entire time at all. In fact, he was, like, on her side all along, and it finally took her a while before she finally realized that, but when she finally did, then it totally changed her perspective on the situation. But anyways, I just think that's kind of an interesting thing of just, like, Link, he's confused at her anger, but he's like, he was sympathetic to her the entire time, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, which is interesting. I like that because it just, like, tells us more about their relationship, but also Link's personality itself, I guess. I also do just like the way that Link handled this situation. I mean, not that he even did anything, I guess, but he was just faithful, and he doesn't have to say anything. Like, it's really all in her own head anyways, and it's all her own junk to deal with, so by the time that she finally was able to, like, kind of cope with that and everything, she was able to treat him with more respect, too. But just, there was no need for him, he didn't have to defend himself, is I guess part of what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? Like, she's kind of like, meh, at him, and he doesn't have to say anything. Both because it's not his problem in the first place, but also because, like, he isn't doing anything wrong, I guess. And so it just, like, there's no reason for him to have to flare up at her in response at all. So while I do think that her whole storyline is weird, just because it doesn't match, like, the type of Zelda that I'm used to seeing in other games, it just, like, I don't understand why she's even having a problem, I guess. Maybe they'll reveal it later, we'll hear about it in the sequel or something, we'll see what happens. But one thing I will say is that it is in theme, because the whole theme of this entire game is, like, you know, everything's all broken down, Ganon won, like, everything's all sad, kind of in that sense, where everything's messed up. The Hyrule Castle's all nasty, the Divine Beasts are all nasty, the Guardians are all nasty, you know, a lot of the people are dead, a lot of the weapons are all dilapidated or gone, like the Master Sword was all chewed up and it was, you know, everything was bad, as we had to restore it and everything until we could actually use it again. And so Zelda's journey is the same kind of thing. Even though it did happen 100 years ago, it's a similar story to what's happening in the present now, 100 years later. So once you're done reading this particular journal, you can go to a nearby room where there is another one that we can read as well, and that is located just upstairs. It's very easy to get to from here. All you have to do is just climb through the hole in the ceiling from this room and just go straight ahead. There is a memory along the way. I'm going to bypass it for now and go straight to the journal, and then I'll come back for the memory so I can do that. I can do both journals right in a row. Anyways, there is a couple chests nearby as well as some Koroks. You can grab them if you wish. I'm going to be ignoring them for the most part, though, and just get these highlights and then continue onwards. Generally speaking, I feel like most of the Koroks, I'm just getting the ones that are convenient. If they're too far out of my way, I'm just ignoring them. So Zelda's research notes is like her talking about her hype and her excitement over her hobby, which is researching the ancient technology and all the ancient languages and stuff with that, the Guardians, the Divine Beasts and all that stuff, the Sheikah Slate, her interactions with the Sheikah tribe themselves and those various characters, and it's also just talking about basically her perspective during all those cinematics, just like the previous diary was doing as well. This one is doing more the memories that are related to the Divine Beasts and all that stuff, and also her interactions with all of the other champions as well. So Zelda is hoping that her research into the ancient technology will pay off, and then eventually they'll be able to use the ancient technology to fight Calamity Ganon instead of relying on her goddess powers. Of course, that ended up failing, and Ganon just took over all the Guardians and the Divine Beasts, and the champions failed and everything. But then again, everybody else failed too. Link failed, Zelda failed, everybody failed. Lots of failure to go around. I feel like Zelda's story is just kind of sad in general. In the end, we're reliant on Link's abilities and her powers, like, all along. So all this, like, research doesn't actually change anything. It doesn't matter. It was completely irrelevant. She spent years of her life pouring into this, and her passion project didn't actually amount to anything whatsoever, which is really sad. But then again, I guess it's kind of symbolic of this game in general, right? You can go straight to Ganon if you want to. Otherwise, you can do the Divine Beast, which kind of helps, but not really. And then otherwise, you can do a bunch of other side quests, and those don't matter either. So all this, like, backstory in the end is just a whole bunch of lore that they just made up just for no reason, I guess. It's kind of like this whole game, though, right? Like, open world adventure game, you can just do whatever you want. Welcome to Hyrule, where the lore is made up and the side quests don't matter. So speaking of this being a big open world adventure game, we have a whole bunch of stuff you could be doing in this game. I picked a route that I think was relatively efficient to get a whole bunch of really good stuff and get it in an efficient manner is my whole goal. And what I was trying to do with that was unlock the Master Sword so that we had it for Hyrule Castle, so we can get all the goodies here and stuff, so you can tackle Ganon if you wish, but also so we could tackle the Divine Beast, because the Master Sword does double damage there. So it's just a really good solid weapon, solid option for the whole dungeon, but in particular for the bosses. Makes the bosses a lot easier, so it's just a really good choice. So you don't have to do that. You could have totally gone to the Divine Beasts first, and then, which is actually kind of beneficial, because after defeating each one of the bosses, they each give you a heart container, which then makes it that much easier to unlock the Master Sword, as opposed to doing 4 shrines to do the equivalent, because it takes 4 pieces of heart to do that, or 4 spirit orbs rather, but you know what I mean. So anyways, you could have gone to the Divine Beast first. I decided to opt out for the other way instead, where we go to the shrines, get a bunch of efficient shrines along our way, and then get a bunch of pieces of hearts so that we could or whatever, spirit orbs, so that we could get the Master Sword. So now that we have that, we've pretty much done most of the things that I really wanted to do as far as a linear order. So now that we've unlocked that, you can kind of go wherever you want. And I know what you guys are thinking. You're like, man, there's been nothing but collection for the last, like, 30 videos. This game's just huge, guys. I don't know. It's just the nature of Breath of the Wild. But anyway, so if you're wanting a change of pace, you could totally do Va Meadow and Va Ruta are currently unlocked if you've been following along with me. So you could do those two Divine Beasts real quick now that we have the Master Sword. In particular, if you have the Snow Quill set upgraded to at least tier 3 or whatever, that would be awesome. You'd have enough armor. You could totally survive that, and it'd be sweet. So that would be kind of a big thing that would help you for all of that. But anyway, of the two, I would highly recommend, by the way, just a quick side note, is doing Va Meadow, because it gives you an ability that allows you to traverse Hyrule and also complete a bunch of puzzles a lot easier. You can kind of cheese some of them, which is pretty awesome. But anyways, super useful ability. So of the different Divine Beasts, that is the one I would highly recommend you do first out of all of them by far. After that, you can do whatever other order you want. But as a quick comment, though, what I'm going to be doing for the next couple videos is I do have some more collection. I know we're almost done, guys, really. We're going to do some more collection, getting the remaining armor pieces and showing you how to upgrade them if you wish. In particular, the one I want to highlight, though, is the Flamebreaker armor. I want to get at least one more piece of that and start upgrading them so that start getting Smotherwing Butterflies, start purchasing them so that we can wait for a few Blood Moons to get all the materials we need to upgrade it super high so that we can tackle the Death Mountain area and complete Va Rudania. So I want to start getting that ball rolling so that by the time we're ready to go to Death Mountain, we already have the stuff upgraded and we're ready to go. So that's one of the reasons why I still think getting armor is still a priority, and that's what I'm going to be doing in the next video. Another comment about that too is you don't have to have all the pieces of armor too. You can have like just the head and the feet pieces, for example, and wear the Champion's Tunic. So because 2 pieces of each one of those will give you all of the flameproof resistance you need so that you can survive in Death Mountain, and also all the heat resistance you need to survive in Gerudo Desert. So if you have just 2 pieces of the Desert Voa set and the Flamebreaker set, then that's all you really need. So you don't have to upgrade everything super extreme. So you don't have to like invest crazy amounts of time and resources into it if you don't want to. So that's another alternative for you. Otherwise, the other thing worth noting is we also have Terrytown to unlock as well. That's an optional side quest that will give you a town that you have access to. The advantage of that is that it gives you access to a bunch of arrows that you can purchase. You can get gems. You can repurchase any armor you've sold. So in particular, if you sold some of that rare DLC armor, you can repurchase it, which is awesome. And you can also rebuy the Hylian Shield in case it breaks. So as far as where you want to do Terrytown in this order of events, I have it after the Divine Beast, but you can do it earlier if you want to. Whatever you decide to do. But yeah, that's my plan for the next little while, so follow along with my linear progression if you wish. But otherwise, this is an open game, so you can kind of go wherever you want. This is kind of the point in the walkthrough where it opens up and it gets really broad, and it's just kind of like a bunch of different directions you can go. So you can skip around in the videos if you want, or you can follow along with me directly, whatever you want to do. Anyways, after you have finished inspecting Zelda's research notes, optionally if you wanted to, just outside there is a memory here that you can inspect as well. This particular one is titled Father and Daughter.
Incredible. We're at a point now where we can actually control them. At the current rate, we'll soon know all we need to know about the Guardians and the Divine Beasts. And should Ganon ever show itself again, we'll be well positioned to defend ourselves.
What are you doing out here, Zelda?
I was assessing the results of the experiment with the Guardians. These pieces of ancient technology could be quite useful against
I know that. They are essential to Hyrule's future, and our research demands that we keep a close eye on them. However, as the princess, you currently have a crucial unfulfilled responsibility to your kingdom. Let me ask you once more, when will you stop treating this as some sort of childish game?
I'm doing everything I can. I'll have you know that I just recently returned from the Spring of Courage, where I offered every ounce of my prayers to the goddess.
And now you are here wasting your time. You need to be dedicating every moment you have to your training. You must be single-minded in unlocking the power that will seal Calamity Ganon away.
I already am. Don't you see? There's nothing more I can do. My hope is that you'll allow me to contribute here in whatever way I can.
No more excuses, Zelda. Stop running away from your duty. As the king, I forbid you to have anything to do with these machines from this moment on, and command you to focus on your training. Do you know how the gossip mongers refer to you? They are out there at this moment, whispering amongst themselves that you are the heir to a throne of nothing. Nothing but failure. It is woven into your destiny that you prove them wrong. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
Alright, so our next objective is to get on top of Hyrule Castle itself. Now, that's pretty easy to find, although there is a lot of enemies along the way. However, I will show you a path that lets you get there without having to deal with them if you don't want to mess with them at all. Now, just so you know, a lot of these Guardian Skywatchers, when defeated, will often give you giant ancient cores, which is the most valuable of the various Guardian materials that you can get. And it also allows you to craft a bunch of ancient gear, which is really, really powerful, some of the most powerful weapons in the game. So anyways, if you want to kill them, that wouldn't be too bad, and the easiest way to do that probably would be to just use a bunch of bomb arrows, and you could defeat them pretty easily, but that is kind of expensive. Now, to get to the castle, you can just, fight your way through it, otherwise you can stealth your way, and I think the easiest way to do that is from this tower, you can just simply use the nearby waterfall. To do that, just get on top of the tower itself. This allows you to fly past a lot of these Guardians. Some of them will see you, but you can just use the terrain to your advantage to block their line of sight, so you interrupt their attack animations so that they can't hit you anyway. Once you get to the waterfall, this will give you a straight shot all the way to the entrance to Hyrule Castle, or the main Sanctum anyways, which is where the battle with Calamity Ganon is. So you can go straight ahead and fight him now if you wish, which is the final battle of the regular base game. But there is more content after that, especially if you purchase the DLC. But I will be showing this battle later on in the walkthrough. I don't want to do it at this exact time, even though I am technically powerful enough to do it, because I've been collecting a whole bunch of goodies. Now, our next objective is to get on top of the Sanctum instead, to get above it, and I'm going to put on the climbing gear for this, and this will lead to an upper room where there is the final piece of the Royal Guard set. So some sets, when you're wearing the full set at 2 stars or more, it will give you an additional bonus. For the climbing set, what that does is it reduces the stamina cost of the jump ability that you use while you're in the middle of climbing. It makes that cost less stamina. So that's also what the Royal Guard set does as well, that I'm getting right now. It reduces the stamina cost of spin attacks, the jump dash, and also the swim dash. It reduces the stamina cost of all 3 of those things, which makes this one of the most versatile sets in the entire game. It doesn't really do anything else special. The armor value on it is kind of low and stuff, but that is kind of nice. It's actually a pretty versatile set for climbing in particular early game. So if you get this right after leaving the Great Plateau, it is actually pretty handy for that. So that's basically everything I wanted to do in Hyrule Castle, so I'm going to go ahead and leave. One quick comment before we do, though, just as an alternative route for you, is if instead you wanted to start at the upper Sanctum, because if you take those waterfalls working your way up, as I was showing, they're pretty easy. You can avoid a lot of the enemy encounters that way, and you gain some serious elevation. So if you come here after you have the Zora armor, you can then just use this to get all the way to the top, get to the Sanctum, and then get above there, where I'm getting this piece of armor right now. And then from there, you can just sail down wherever you want. I think this is particularly true to get to the tower. It's pretty easy because the tower is kind of awkward to get to. The lower part is a little bit weird. It's not really not that bad. All you have to do is go through Zelda's room and climb through the ceiling, but it just is a little bit confusing looking. So if that intimidates you and getting past all those Guardians and stuff, it might be easier to just start off by using the Zora armor and the waterfalls instead, and then you can sail down to the other areas, and that might be a lot easier for you as an alternative to what I showed you in this video. Alright, so now there's some quests to hand in that are related to Hyrule Castle, but you know what? This particular video has gone on real long, so I'm going to do that in the next one. So as always, huge thanks goes out to all of my Patreon supporters for helping to make this possible. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, be sure to throw a like on it, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content just like this. Remember to stay awesome, you have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time.